Hi everybody, it's Dr. Joanny Liu. Welcome to Rapid Injury Recovery Facebook Live. This week's topic is the biggest lies perpetrated by the movie Concussions. Have you seen it yet? Okay, I want you to go and tell your friends that this is on right now. Let them know that this is going on. The thing is that with this movie, Concussions, it starred Will Smith, and he played the main character, Dr. Bennett Amatlu, who's a Nigerian and an immigrant, okay, to the U.S. So it was always his dream to come to the U.S. So I decided to go see this movie as part of my research just to find out what these guys were going to do or going to say about concussions. Were they going to say anything different? Well, I guess I was so disappointed by the movie that I actually went out and wrote a press release about it, because it didn't address very much at all. I think all it really did was make people feel more fearful about it. And to me, making people feel more fearful about anything doesn't help the situation at all. So what bugged me was the fact that it was very important to name the disease before anybody else did. This was a huge priority early on in the film, okay? So that definitely did not impress me, because the way I look at it, when it comes down to a diagnosis, telling you what you already know that you have is not a diagnosis, okay? That a diagnosis should tell you why it's happening to you. And especially in this case, because they tell you that you can't tell if you've got chronic traumatic encephalopathy unless you're dead. And I don't believe that at all. And I'll tell you a little bit more why later. Then they said, and very emphatically, that football was responsible for CTE. They said that it was a number of thousands and thousands and thousands of times of being hit. Okay, so they said football was responsible for it. And then there was a scene in the movie where Dr. Amatlu was supposed to have said, because, you know, he's watching TV and they've just announced that Mike Webster, a Hall of Famer with the Pittsburgh Steelers, so this is in 2002, had just died. And they had, the reporter had said that he was having mental illness problems and, you know, other difficulties. And so Dr. Amatlu says, he says this: "Why does an apparently healthy favorite son of this city die in disgrace at 50? He said apparently healthy. Well, you know, as I'm watching this movie, I felt like I was getting hit all over. I felt like I was being, you know, it felt like blow by blow, because I thought, oh my God, you got to be joking. Who, when they're suffering from mental emotional problems, how can anybody ever say that that person is healthy? Okay? Mike Webster, before he died, he suffered from memory loss. In fact, it was so bad that he, when he drove his car, he often couldn't remember how to get home, believe it or not. You know, so he actually ended up being kind of homeless. He couldn't remember how to trying to reconnect. Okay, we're back. Okay. He was, in the movie, you know, he was begging his doctors, you know, please help me do something with my head. Help me with my brain. You know, like he was just so much in pain, so much emotional pain. And I want to remind you, emotional pain is real. When you have emotional pain, you have physical pain too. But that emotional pain is very, very hard to run away from, because it's with you all the time. So I found it very puzzling that they would say that he was healthy when he was evidently not. And So the other thing that was very puzzling in the movie was that they said you can't tell that a person has CTE until they've died and they can take a look at the brain. And yet I'm pretty positive that in the movie he actually said that the brain looks normal, and so you really got to dig in deep. But the thing is that just by Mike Webster's behavior alone, that was an indication of something that was going wrong with the brain, and whether that was CTE or not, I think isn't actually that important. At least it's not to me. I just know that somebody is suffering so much that it's definitely affected their lives and their brain and their body. There's just no question about it, whether we call it CTE or we call it something else. I mean, I would have my own classical Chinese diagnostic, which again would tell you why it was happening to him, okay? And then we would actually start solving the problem, because nobody could help him with whatever mental anxiety, whatever mental illness he was having at the time. Okay, so let's see. Okay, and so here we are, blacked out again. Okay, here we are. So the thing is that they're still doing a lot of research on this, right? They're still doing a lot of research on CTE. They're still examining brains of dead people. And they're hoping to come up with a diagnostic for people who are still alive. And quite frankly, it's right in front of them. So it's not that hard. But the thing is that the research that they're still doing is still only giving us statistics of the disease. So for instance, this was a study that came out last May this year. And they said that the MRIs measured the amount of damage to the brain's white matter, which connects different brain regions based on the movement of water molecules in the brain tissue. Okay. So 17 players, or 43%, had levels of movement 2.5 standard deviations below those of healthy people of the same age, which is considered evidence of traumatic brain injury with a less than 1% error rate. And then 12 of the former athletes, or 30%, showed evidence on traditional MRI of injury to the brain due to disruption of the nerve axons, those parts of nerve cells that allow brain cells to transmit messages to each other. And 3, on tests of thinking skills, only 50% had significant problems of executive function, 45% on learning or memory, 42% on attention and concentration, and 24% on spatial perceptual function. So, my question is, for any study like this, does this really help us? How does this really help us when we have all these statistics? Does it show us a way out? Does it tell us why this is happening to us? No, none of this research has a solution in sight. In fact, I wish they would actually stop doing this type of statistical analysis, because it really is a waste of money. The NFL spent $100 million 2 years ago to research concussions, okay? And the big results were announced last spring, about a year ago actually. So this brilliant group of neuroscientists came up with this solution: exercise. That's right. Let's exercise more. Do you know that athletes exercise for a living? Do you know that exercise is supposed to be a remedy for stress? Okay? It's not doing either one. It's not helping these guys at all when we can come up with a solution like this. More exercise for guys with concussions. Okay. Okay, the question that we really need to ask is, why does the brain become weak? Okay? So the thing is okay, great, we're back. So what we really need to do is ask the question, why does the brain get weak in the first place? And it's stress. The answer is stress. And more exercise is not going to help. More statistics is not going to help. Professional athletes are among the most stressed out people on the planet because, well, they're under constant public scrutiny. There's a lot of pressure to perform, and every time they make a mistake, it's very, very public. So, not every single one of these guys is going to experience that stress, just like not every one of them is going to have a concussion. In fact, when we really look at the broad picture of it, not that many football players, considering how many play or have been, throughout history, have had a concussion. Others have had leg injuries, hip injuries, knee injuries, shoulder injuries, elbow injuries, hand injuries, thumb injury, But just the same way, not that many people, not everybody has all those injuries either. So what is it that makes one person weak in one part of the body and not the other parts? And one person is weak in different parts and not the same parts as somebody else, as their neighbor. It all comes down to personal circumstances. So chronic stress is something that bothers you over and over. And it's usually something from the past that you deeply regret or are angry about, that you hate having it have happened to you. That's really what stress is all about. Stress is about feeling helpless. It's about feeling out of control. You don't feel safe. And of course, the more we talk about things like concussion and CTE, they don't know how to help you. The more you hear about that, the more, if you believe it, you will feel afraid. And you won't feel safe out there. Because ordinary people get concussions, right? A lot of us have bumped our heads so many times on doing the most ridiculous things, and it's even possible to have concussion symptoms when you haven't had a blow to the head, or even been in a motor vehicle accident, or had a fall, or you can still have those symptoms without anything happening to you. And it's because if you are a person whose weak spot is the brain, then you will experience those symptoms regardless of whether you are knocked around thousands of times or even just once. Okay? People get Post Concussion Syndrome even with just one time. So, we really have to take into consideration your emotional state. So I've talked about the signs to look for if you have a concussion, what to do immediately after you suspect a concussion, a blow to the head that might have created a concussion. I've talked about what you can do about sleep. I talked about what you can do, even brain fuel, good old flaxseed oil. So there are solutions, but you're going to have to look outside the box. You're going to have to think outside the box. You're going to have to be creative. And most of all, you're going to have to try and solve the problems that got you hurt in the first place. And if somebody has done something to you in your life that you absolutely hate or were so surprised by, you have to let it go. And as deeply hurt and maybe grieving as you are, let yourself let yourself grieve, okay? But there's a certain time when you have to step out of it and start living your life for yourself. because that's the only way you are going to get out of that stressful situation. That's how you're going to retrain your brain, okay? Because you got to start living your life the way you were meant to live it without carrying the baggage around with you for days, months, years, and decades later, because it's only going to get you into more and more trouble. Okay, so before we close today, I want to tell you about something big that's happening tomorrow. Okay? My new book, Heal Your Concussion, How to Quickly and Effectively Get Back in the Game. Oh, I'll show you the cover. Okay, here it is. There it is. Okay, well, it's going to be on sale between 9 a.m. Eastern Time and 1 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning, Friday, June the 3rd, for 99 cents US or about $1.29 Canadian. So only during those hours. It's going to be on special. Please pick one up, buy one, and please leave me a review, an honest review about it, and it will help to spread the news that yes, you can do something about your concussion. You can do something about your post-concussion syndrome, because all of it is temporary. So thank you very much. I'll see you next week. Awesome. Bye.